Hello there, friends. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new. My name is Mali, and it is time for the mid-year book freakout tag. We're halfway through the year already. I can't believe it. And I wanted to do a little mid-year review and talk to you guys about my biggest disappointments, my biggest surprises, my best books of the year so far, and so on and so forth. So at the beginning of the year, I set some goals, right? As we all do. And I thought we would look back at them, right? See how we're doing. My first reading goal was to read 75 books this year, and I'm doing really, really good with this. As of today, June 29, when I'm filming this video, I have read 48 books. I'm 12 books ahead. I set this goal specifically because I wanted to read stress-free. Last year, you guys know that I set a goal of 100 books, and that was so stressful, especially during that second half of the year. And so I don't want to do that. I don't want to push myself that hard. I don't want to have that stressful number as my reading goal. I did it once in my life and that was enough. If I ever hit 100 books again organically, then hell yeah, amazing. But I think 75 is a really, really good number for me. I've hit that goal before in the past, and if I surpass it, then that's awesome. But I won't have that really stressful high number of 100 books. So that was insane of me. My next goal for 2025 was to keep a reading journal. I never talked about my reading journal here on the channel. I did set as a goal to keep up with a reading journal, because at the beginning of every year, I'm like, this is gonna be the year I'm gonna be a crafty journal girl, you know? But it never happens because I don't think that my journal style is that really trendy junk journal, paste everything on the page. That's kind of what I set out my reading journal to be. I wanted to make it really cute and aesthetic, but my problem with the reading journal, right, is that I found it redundant because I only talk about the books that I read on this channel and on Instagram and all that, on my reading wrap-ups. And so to go back and fill out my reviews every month just got really tedious. And I thought that the problem was that I was trying to make my reading journal for YouTube content, for videos and stuff, but I didn't put my reading journal in videos so as not to have that pressure. But it still ended up being something that I never really went back at, and I never really filled it out. I always had to remind myself to, oh my god, yeah, your reading journal, fill it out, girl. I'm just not gonna have this as a goal for the rest of the year and probably ever. My last goal for 2025 was to read 10 books in Spanish. I've only read 2 out of the 10 that I wanted to read. I've read Las Primas and Tuya. I really want to make a little Spanish TBR for the rest of the year so I can keep ahead of this goal, because I would really want to accomplish this one, because I mainly read in English, but my main language is not English, it is Spanish. So I want to continue reading in Spanish and practicing my Spanish, because yes, I do use it every day. I live in Puerto Rico, so I use it every day, but it's very casual Spanish that I use. I don't ever read academically or read law papers in Spanish or anything like that. The next thing I wanted to review was my 25 for 2025. At the beginning of the year, I put a little video talking about the 25 books that I wanted to read during this year and focus on. As of right now, I've read 12 books out of the 25, and I DNF'd one. Not bad. I do refer to this list every now and then. I also found myself organically picking up some of the books that I put on this list. Excited about this progress, and hopefully this is the year that I complete the list. All right, so that is the beginning of the year. To get started with the questions, the very first one is, what is the best book you've read in 2025? I've honestly not had the best reading year so far. That is not to say that I've been in a reading slump or anything like that. I've been reading every day, and I've been having fun with some of the books that I pick up. But at the same time, I found that I've had quite a mediocre reading year in terms of this time last year, I had at least 5 books that I really, really love and that were 5-star reads for me. This year, I found that the 5-star reads have been hard to come by. That being said, my first and only official 5-star read of 2025 has been The Wall by Marlene Hushofer. This is a literary dystopian book in which a woman wakes up one day to find that there's an invisible force field around her and her cabin. And so what happens is that for the next year, follow this woman as she does her best to survive and to build a home despite the circumstances. This is a beautiful story on loneliness, resilience, bravery, and on connection, because our main character there's nobody with her, right? Except for a couple of animals. There is a dog, a couple of cats, and a cow with her. And these animals are her lifeline. They are her best chance of survival, but they're also her companions. And there is so much tenderness and love in the page between her and animals. And I absolutely adore this. This is a type of literary fiction that I love. It's very quiet, it's very introspective, and I just had the best time. This has been a predicted 5-star read for the longest time, so I'm really happy that I did finally read it this year and that I absolutely adored it. I just found it so beautiful. So yeah, this is my first 5-star of 2025. I also want to mention Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. I'm putting this one on my 5-star reads for 2025 because while I did reread this year, this is now my second time rereading it. I just adored it so much more the second time around. I first read this like 2 years ago, I will say, and I rated it a 4-star. This time around, I bumped it up to a 5-star because truly this is such a beautiful book on being a young 20-something-year-old girl and experiencing your first love. And it is a quite toxic love. This is not a happy love story, but I've absolutely adored Megan Nolan's writing and her exploration in this relationship that was so, so pivotal for this young girl, despite how wrong it went. Really love Megan Nolan's writing in this one. This is literally like her best book ever, and it's insane that it's a debut novel. I also want to mention Some Strange Music Draws Me In. I read this in May and I really loved it. Set in 1980s, we follow this young trans man, but back in the 1980s, he was still a girl, and so we follow her childhood. We follow the summer that led to her transitioning, and it is a beautiful coming of age. I rated it a 4-star when I first read it, but I honestly keep thinking about it. So I think that by the end of the year, you might see this in my favorites list. It's just so good. I also really want to mention The Door by Magda Sabo and also Sea of Tranquility. These two are my honorable mentions of 2025. I'll be talking more about this later in the video with some other questions, but right now I just want to mention them. Next question is, what is the best sequel you've read this year? And I haven't really read anything, so we're going on to the next question, which is new releases you want to read. I have so many, but really quickly I want to mention some that are coming out in the next couple of weeks. We have The Hounding. This is set in the 18th century in a small rural village in France. We follow 5 sisters, and people are somehow convinced that they're turning into dogs. This sounds absolutely amazing to me. The blurb on Goodreads promises a similar vibe to The Virgin Suicides, which piqued my interest because that is one of my favorite books of all time, probably. This is coming out on August 5th. Another book I'm really excited for is A Truce That Is Not Peace by Marian Taus. This is Taus' first attempt at a memoir, and I am so excited to read this. I love Marian Taus, and I can say this wholeheartedly with only having read 2 of her books out of like the myriad of books that she has on her backlist, which I'm so excited about because it means that I have a lot of reading material. But yeah, this comes out August 26th. I also have Enlin by Maria Reva. This is about a Ukrainian biologist who dates Western men in order to fund her work. I don't know, but there's something about a snail which sounds really funny, and this is already out. This was published June 3rd. I do have an e-arc for this, so I want to start this sometime soon. And then lastly, I have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I haven't read a V.E. Schwab in like forever. I read the Grisha verse books back in 2016 when that came out, and then in 2021 when I was getting back into reading after the pandemic, I remember reading A Darker Shade of Magic, and that kind of propelled me to keep reading. However, I'm really excited about this one because there's vampires and they're lesbians, and that's all I need to know. Thank you. This is already out. This was published on June 10, and I have a Libby hold for it. The next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Millie King has a new book coming out on October 7th, which is my birth month, and I'm quite excited for that. I've yet to read more Lily King. The only book that I read by her still is Writers and Lovers, but that book, oh my god, is one of my favorite books of all time, and I love that book with my whole entire soul. You can understand why I'm quite eager that there is a new Lily King out. I just need to read more of her work, so I'm really excited for this one. This book seems to be about a friendship between a girl and 2 boys. I think there is a love triangle involved. I think it doesn't quite work out, and then we are many years in the future when the girl's past is catching up to her somehow. I don't know. This will be the year that I finally read somewhere Lily King, because I also have these 2 books on my TBR by her that I haven't read yet. Next question is biggest disappointment of 2025, and I am gonna be a bitch for the next 5 minutes. This year, like I said, has been the worst fucking year in terms of like anticipated releases and books I'm really excited for, and these end up being disappointments. I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm hyping these books up too much in my head, but oh my god, I got a few disappointments for 2025. I'm gonna start with the one that literally was my first book of the year, the book that I was super excited for, a book by an author that I've read before and that I really love. I am talking about Life Form by Jenny Slate. Last year, 2024, Jenny Slate's Little Weirds was my first book of that year, right? I absolutely adored it. It was such a beautiful book, a beautiful memoir, beautiful writing, so whimsical. Like literally, I've never read a book like that, and I don't think I ever will. I was so excited to start off my year with another Jenny Slate book. Life Form by Jenny Slate was so fucking boring. There is no way that the same Jenny Slate that wrote Little Weirds wrote Life Form. It felt like she was under contact and she had to come out with another book before the contact ended, and this was what she put out. It was so uninspired, and she literally talks about her writing process and how she is looking for inspiration while writing that book in particular. And the reason why I was so excited is because it is yet another memoir, right? And this time she comes back with the topic of motherhood. So I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god, Jenny Slate is gonna make me want to have a fucking child. I can understand Jenny Slate slander and hate with that book because it felt like she was trying too hard. Like the whimsy didn't come natural to her with Life Form. It felt like word vomit. It felt like she was trying too hard to be quirky and different. It was not a good way to start off the year, and I think that book fucking cursed me. Then I went on to do the same mistake because I then picked up We Could Be Rats. Emily Austen is an author that I also really, really like, right? I've read Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, something like that. And then last year, 2024, I also started off the year with reading her newest release, which was at the time Something About Space. Whatever. Jenny Slate let me down, but let me check out the new Emily Austen. I also hated this book. Oh my god. The quirkiness and the laugh out loud moments and the charm that I love about Emily Slate's previous protagonists and previous plot lines, I didn't find it in this book. In fact, everything pissed me off. The 2 main characters pissed me off. They got on my nerves so many times. I also did not love the letter format. I don't like books that are just a bunch of letters. I don't like it. Also, this one felt so heavy in tone in comparison to her other novels. This book also does need to come with a huge trigger warning, which is suicide ideation, because the entire book is about our main character, which I forgot her name. I think it was Sigrid. She wants to kill herself. And so she started writing a series of letters. Every single letter is another attempt of hers or something like that. I don't remember very well. It got really repetitive. And then Sigrid also got in my fucking nerves because she acted like a child. Her quirkiness was that she couldn't grow up. Like she was still stuck in childhood. And I did not like that at all. Another book by a favorite author that just did not feel like the same author that I knew. And then in rapid fire succession, some other disappointing reads of 2025 were The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. Yes, you heard me correctly, The Ocean Vuong. I also thought that he could do no wrong, but this was yet another book that didn't feel like him. I also have This Is How You Lose the Time War. I did not love this at all. And then I have Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This did not deserve to win the Booker Prize. Oh my god, humans are so tiny and the world is so big, space is so big, oh my god, and we're so tiny. And you're telling me not one Booker Prize judge has ever thought about that? Boring. I'm done being a hater. Thank you so much for hearing me out. We're moving on to the next question, which is the biggest surprise of 2025. And I have a really fun one. Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. I've had this book on my TBR for 3 years, and I finally got around to it in this video. When I was done, I could not believe that I had this brilliant little thing just collecting dust for about 3 years. I absolutely love this weird little time traveling sci-fi. It was so perfectly balanced for me between plot and characters, and I found the whole thing so original. I love the little dystopian moments in this book. This is just as much about time traveling and colonies in the moon as it is a pandemic novel, but please don't let that scare you. It is not a boring COVID book. It truly is such an addictive read. And I guess I was so surprised to love this book because it sounds so far away from what I usually read. Next question is new favorite author, and I have to go with the author of both of these books, Emily St. John Mandel, because immediately after reading Sea of Tranquility, I went with Station 11 and I had an equal surprising reading experience, and I also ended up really liking it. I found her writing to be so skillful in bringing together all these different elements so that by the end of both of these books, I was left speechless at her cleverness. I love how she writes about mortality, time, humanity, survival, against an insanely unique backdrop. Both of these books were so hard to put down for me, and I had the best time reading both of these. I am so eager to keep reading more Emily St. John Mandel. I'm looking at buying The Glass Hotel because I've heard that it's like the final book to kind of tie these two books together, like kind of part of like an unofficial series. Like I've heard that characters from The Glass Hotel also have shown up in one of these books or both of these books. I don't know, I'm just so excited to keep reading more Emily St. John Mandel. I've also heard that there's a new book by her coming out in 2026, I think it is. All right, so the next two questions, we're kind of skipping over them because the next ones are newest fictional crush and newest favorite character, and I fear that I don't have any responses for these two. However, I can answer the question book that made you cry, which was The Wall by Marlene Hushofer. The reason why I cried is because this book puts a lot of emphasis on the relationship between our main character and her animals. And I found the book to be so tender in that approach. I have animals, I have 4 cats, and the way she would talk about her cat and then her dog and her cows and how she was so appreciative of each and every one of them. Literally the reason why she didn't lose her mind, and she worried about them so much. She worried about them constantly, and there were worries that I've had about my own animals. What made me cry is that there's this thing that happens with some of her animals, and I think you can guess because every single time a book or a movie centers around an animal, that animal ends up dying, right? And it's not a spoiler because you already thought that. And then the book does have a lot of foreshadowing. You know, probably from the 50th page that the animals are, not all of them are gonna make it. And there are so many passages where I highlighted that love and that grief that our main character already goes through with her animals. Literally reading this at a cafe, and I ended up crying at that cafe. I had to get up and go to the bathroom to dry my tears and recollect myself. Yeah, this is the only book that made me cry in the year of 2025. I think that's the reason why it ended up being a 5-star for me as well, because I was already loving the reading experience, right? I was loving the writing, I was loving the story, I was loving everything, and then that emotional impact at the end just like solidified that this is a 5-star read. Next question is book that made you happy. I'm gonna go with The Door by Magda Sabo, and the reason for that is because this was my 4th read of 2025, and when I said that the beginning of the year was rough, I really mean it. This was the first book that I even remotely liked in 2025, and so I think that made me really happy. This also just hit all the right spots for me. This is literally the type of book that I absolutely love and adore. In this book, we follow 2 different women. One is a wealthy writer and the other is her housekeeper. And seeing a friendship, love, and understanding grow between the 2 women was such a rewarding reading experience. This is honestly a book that I still think about to this day, and I am so due another Magda Sabo. All right, we're on the last 2 questions. This next one is most beautiful book you've bought this year, and I'm gonna go with this edition of Brideshead Revisited. I love this. I also really love the Modern Penguin Classics edition, but I saw this one on Pango Books for about $6-8 maybe, and I just immediately bought it. I'm gonna be reading this one quite soon because it is a pick for an online book club that I'm part of, so I'm hoping that I love it. I haven't read a classic in a little bit. Okay guys, we're on the very last question, and that is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? There's some books in my physical TBR that I've had for about 3 years, and I still haven't gotten to them. And I'm really hoping that another seal to including phenomenon happens. I hope that when I get to these books, I absolutely adore them, and I'm kicking myself mentally for having these on my TBR for as long as I did. So the first book that I've had on my TBR for forever and I haven't gotten to is Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory. This is a short story collection. I remember it got really popular some time ago on Instagram, and everybody was reading it and raving about it and loving it. And obviously I got swept up in that and I bought it, but then I never read it. But this is a book that I'm still quite curious about, because I heard that the author of this is the same guy who created BoJack Horseman. Now, I'm not a BoJack Horseman girly. That's not like my favorite show ever, but I've remember seeing 1 or 2 seasons. I really liked it. I thought it was a nice show. And so I know that BoJack Horseman is quite existential, it's quite philosophical, it's quite hard-hitting, and kind of a depressing show. So I'm expecting the same thing with this book. And then the last book that I've had on my TBR for quite a bit now, I'm not sure if it's been 3 years, but it's been a while, Homesick for Another World. I have this book available, but I can't find it. It's somewhere in these stacks, but I can't find it. This is yet another short story collection. Ottessa Moshfegh, so I know it's going to be weird, it's going to be disturbing, it's going to be a little fucked up. And I'm not sure why I haven't picked it up, because I love Ottessa Moshfegh, but I think since it is the last book I've to read from her, that's why I haven't picked it up, because there's been no news of another book by her and I need it badly. Alright, so I mentioned some of the books that have been on my TBR for the longest time. I, however, want to put together a little list of books that I want to get to sometime soon. These are books that are more on my Libby TBR. So these are books that I keep putting holds on, and then when my holds are ready, I put deliver later, because I'm just not ready to read them just yet, because I'm so overwhelmed with all the books on my physical TBR. But I want to make sure that I read them sometime soon. And they are The Colony. This is a book that I keep seeing floating around Instagram. I'm really, really intrigued. I think this is something about a cult. I also have 10 minutes and 38 seconds in This Strange World. This is a book that's been on my radar for forever. It's been years now, and I've yet to read it. I, however, have it on my Kindle right now to read it soon. And then I have Farewell Ghost. This is a fairly new release, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember much about it, but I'm really excited about this one. So 50 minutes and a warm coffee later, we are done with the mid-year book freakout tag questions. I literally can't believe that we're halfway through the year. It's felt like this year has gone by really, really fast somehow. Quite excited actually for the second half of the year, just because I am over the summer. I want cold, I want burr months. But yeah, I'm hoping that for the next half of the year that my reading amps up. I hope that I find a lot of 5 stars, because like I said, they've been scarce. Comment down below your favorite books of 2025. If you want to be a hater with me, tell me your worst books of 2025 as well. I'm curious to know either way. These questions were so fun to answer, and I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye!